Welcome to JetCast, a special little Friday afternoon lunch hour with us. Steve, I, I feel like last week's game didn't happen. I feel like the Jets just did not play football. And they kind of didn't at the end of the day. Um, I don't know what this team is. I don't know what this team is offensively. I don't know if they're the week one team that we saw. I don't know if they're the week two team they saw. I'm pretty sure I know what we are on defense. We're a team that just gets gashed in the run game and gives up 30 points over and over again. I kind of expect the same thing this week. But what are your first thoughts about the crap that we saw against the Bills?
Well, I mean, they did a pretty good job last week of taking any positivity out of week one. And,
In typical Jet fashion.
In typical Jet fashion.
Yep.
Because, you feel good. You look at the Steelers being a good team, well coached, Aaron Rodgers, he's still able to get the ball out. He may not be able to run. And then you go into, and not to take anything away from the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they're one of the best teams. They won the game last night, so now they're 3-0. But it's typical Jets, like you said. And the Steelers certainly didn't look like world beaters. So now it kind of, takes away a little bit maybe from the way week one looked, although there are no moral victories. And yeah, you're right. They got absolutely gashed by James Cook in the running game last week. Whereas week one, they held their own. So now here we are.
Yeah, I hear people saying online that at least the passing defense was decent because Josh Allen only had like a 73 QBR rating. And my argument is, well, he only had a rating like that because he didn't have to throw the ball. They didn't have to throw the ball. James Cook ran all over this defense. Yeah. And we thought that was going to be not a strength, but we thought it was going to be better than last year. So they can't stop the run. They very clearly have issues on the back end with Stevens. Our safeties look terrible. Our linebackers are over pursuing over and over and over again. It's all over the tape. And it played right into the Bills' hands. These zone cutback lanes for James Cook, you might as well have you could drive a Mack truck through them. They were so big. And it's all because our linebackers, look, I'll say this in general about the Jets roster. We have some all-pro players at some positions. Garrett, Sauce, Quinnen. I think Breece Hall is a good player. The tackles are good right now. We'll see. But everywhere else on the roster, safety, linebacker, wide receiver too, outside Garrett Wilson, you have a bunch of guys that I think would have trouble making a UFL team. And that's where the problems lie. There's no depth here. There's no depth. And Michael Clemens is a perfect example of that. People want to kill Michael Clemens. They want to kill Aaron Glenn. I'm not ready to say Aaron Glenn is a terrible coach after 2 games.
Right.
I don't think he should have been in on that play, the roughing the passer play. But my argument to some Jet fans is, who else are you going to put there? Unfortunately, he is the third best edge on the team. That's how bad the roster depth is.
Yeah. Well, we knew this was not a 1-year transformation, right?
Right.
And you brought up, a couple of positions, right? You brought up safety. Linebacker, okay. They retained Quincy and they re-signed Jamie and Sherwood, and that's not looking so good. You bring up the defensive line. These were all things we talked about leading into the draft, and they didn't really get addressed. Okay. The only move that they made was a 5th or a 6th round pick and a guy who did not look good in camp, did not look good in preseason. So you're absolutely right that Clemens got to stick. I don't think we've seen enough and knowing what Steve Wilks was in other places to say that his scheme stinks. There is the adjustment. We say it all the time. Guys don't get enough practice time with pads on, in training camp. They don't play, 4 quarters of 3 games in preseason, so there's a little rust, but that's almost taking a glass half full approach. And we're finding out quickly that it's not even half empty, it's really empty. I saw something. Go ahead.
It's hard, obviously, for any new regime to come in where the talent is as void as it was with the Jets. And you're right, it's not everybody wants them to be great like immediately when a new coach comes in, and that just isn't the case because the Jets have been bad for so long. There is a clear lack of talent in the majority of the roster. I don't
I think
know
one thing we were looking for, though, everybody got tired of the Salah-isms and the lack of emotion on the sideline and the
there's no lack of emotion. I'll give you that much. There's
no
lack
for
of emotion,
sure. But I think some of us weren't thrilled with the way they went, in terms of the coaching hire and the front office and the staff, and others were cautiously optimistic. But the one thing I think we wanted to see was more competitiveness. Not a game like we wound up seeing Sunday against the Bills, which is something we've seen for going on for 15 years now.
Right. Well, they were actually able to game plan against the Jets while the Steelers kind of didn't know what was going to happen. So it remains to be seen how the rest of the season is going on. And I don't know if there was a real issue with Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn kind of being hired later in the process. If they had maybe gotten a GM in, I think maybe a little sooner, maybe you would have had a little bit more, or that person and his team would have had maybe a little bit more of a feel of the roster and who to let go and who to bring in. But you can't fix every hole in one offseason. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. You keep the guys that are good, you extend guys that deserve to be extended, and you move on from there. It's a 3 or 4 win season. It just is what it is. Dan Campbell won 3 games his first season, then went 9-8, then won the division. If that's the progression that we're going to have, I'm all for it. I'm all for it because that means we're also likely getting a quarterback in the draft, but that's a conversation down the road. But you're right. The competitiveness is what kills me. And I said this on X. It's like, it's not just the fact that we lost. It's the fact that we were non-competitive. That is the biggest thing. And it was the most jet-like loss I've seen. Look, we've seen some clunkers, right? We've seen some bad games. This wasn't even a clunker because the freaking truck didn't even start. Nothing got going. The Jets had 154 yards on offense. Tyrod Taylor had 106 QBR in garbage time.
It was garbage time, right?
A perfect example of stats mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah, this was a 30-3 game. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And anybody who wants to go out there and say, "Oh, Michael Clemens cost us the game," I'm sorry. Michael Clemens did not cost us the game. Any decent team should be able to take that, take that penalty on the chin and recover from it. We lost the game because the Bills game planned properly and James Cook ran the ball down our throats. That's
the other side of it is we saw a very familiar Justin Fields last Sunday. And I say that because, we had a bright spot against the Steelers, but we got to see the Fields that the league has seen since 2021 when he got drafted by the Bears. And, the Bills were without their best defender in Landry,
Oliver.
Right? Oliver. Thank you. Ed Oliver. Right? And it didn't matter. Okay. Not to take anything away from the pieces they moved, but it didn't really matter. Something was with his vision. It was almost like the movie Major League. Let's get him a pair of glasses and see what he can do. But that was disappointing. And you can't even gauge Tyrod because he came in garbage time. Great. The first touchdown of Ruckert's career. At this point, the Bills weren't even trying because they had a short turnaround and they played Thursday night against Miami. And let me tell you something, that's another troubling thing because Mike McDaniel, who is clearly on the hot seat as head coach of the Dolphins, he called one of his best games in that game. Yeah, it was the Tua interception. It was a mistake running into the kicker on special teams that the Dolphins made. But you want to use the word competition. That game was competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And it doesn't
Yep.
bode well for Monday Night Football in a week and a half. It really
Nope.
doesn't.
Nope.
Yeah.
It doesn't. So, all right, let's just move on now. Hopefully, they just flush this game down the toilet, and they're ready to play. They got to be ready to play this Buccaneers team, because if they're not ready to play, they're going to be blown out.
Yep.
Baker Mayfield is one of the best quarterbacks in the league at making things happen off schedule. And with an offensive line that has, I think, 3 guys out,
Yep.
he's going to be making a bunch of plays off schedule. I don't see us winning this game. I think Mike Evans will be kept in check, but I think Mbuka is going to probably have a hell of a game against Stevens.
So you bring up some good points because Igbuka got a little banged up in their game Monday night against the Texans, where they won in the final minute. It was Drew Baker, but Todd Bowles, familiar face and name, he said that he was limited in practice today, and he expects him to play. So it was like a hip or a groin thing. He may not be 100% Igbuka. I think you're right. I think, Sauce, if he cleans up some of what we saw last week, I think it'll be an interesting matchup between him and Evans, 2 big guys, very physical. But, that's one of the parallels with the Jets is the Bucs wide receivers. Godwin, they're being very cautious in bringing him back. So they've got Igbuka and then guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if Igbuka isn't 100%, I mean, they've gotten absolutely nothing out of their tight ends. Maybe, and my fear is this may be the week, because with how bad the linebackers have been going for the Jets. You brought up the O-line. Yeah, they're taking it easy with bringing Tristan Wirfs back. I don't expect him to play this week. He has been practicing. They'll probably hold off on him for about another week or 2. But they moved their center, Graham Barton, over to left tackle. He had played left tackle in college, so that was okay. But then they lost their guard, Cody Mauch. He's gone for the year. Luke Godicke, their right tackle, is now out for at least 4 weeks. Michael Jordan, no relation to the basketball player for the viewers, he comes into right guard and looked not great. So it's a bit of a makeshift line, but knowing what we know, history, and being just so beat up, you look at it and you say, man, the Jets D line, they have to get pressure. Granted, Jermaine Johnson has been ruled out, but I look at that and say, are we sure?
Right. It's the typical game where you're going to look at that offensive line and you're going to say, oh, the Jets should eat them alive. And then they show up and they don't play. Like it has it written all over it. And I don't know. This roster is devoid of not just talent, but I think of the will to fight in a football game. And that's been instilled in them, I think, over the last 4-5 seasons. It just permeates everything. Who knows? Like maybe last week with the Michael Clemens, penalty, just the whole team just went in the toilet because we're not going to even have a shot here. And you saw it. These kind of, from my perspective, I saw guys taking plays off. I saw guys missing tackles all over the place. And that is the typical Jet game that you see every week. And you would have to think that Aaron Glenn is the type of coach that's not only played the game, but been around players who have done that in the past and knows what to do to motivate them. And if they're not going to be motivated, they're going to be out of here in a year or 2. That's what you hope for. With
that's
Tyrod,
a great point.
With Tyrod starting, Fields being out, you have to think that the passing game should be a little better. But now we know Josh Reynolds is also out. So Arian Smith is going to have to step it up. And I hate saying that for a week 3 pure rookie, but he's going to have to do something. He's going to have to contribute in some way. Otherwise, I don't think the passing game is going to do anything. Mason Taylor is going to have to find some space. Jeremy Ruckert is going to have to find some space. All of a sudden, he's becoming a favorite target in this offense. And the threat of running is not totally gone, but it's nowhere near what it was with Justin Fields playing.
Right.
So,
But some of that, my focus shifts to Tanner Engstrand, the OC, because yeah, we need to see some of that running. We didn't talk about the defensive line for the Bucs. We'll get to that because they got hit with a pretty significant injury. But I want to see more motion. I want to see Breece get out into space a little more. I want to see. We know what Braylon Allen can do. We know what he is. I want to see a little bit more trickery. Like I said, more motion, condensed splits, a little more play action, which I think you can do with Tyrod Taylor and Isaiah Davis. Get him involved. He's got speed. Maybe they'll limit him a little bit because he's probably the kick returner because Keeney's been ruled out again with the hamstring injury.
Mhm.
But I think it starts in the, upstairs or wherever Tanner is, in the booth or on the sideline with a little more creativity and get these running backs involved more in the game because we don't have the wide receivers. I mean, Alan Lazard, is he still on the team? Yeah, he is, right? You brought up Arian Smith. It's a good focal point, but we don't have Reynolds. And then what? Is this the expectation that Tyler Johnson is going to look like a Pro Bowl receiver in this game is very unrealistic. So, you need to, as best as you can with Tyrod, who's not, a young man anymore, you got to move him around. You got to, be able to, work on those condensed splits, try the play action. Maybe they won't jam the box. Maybe they respect Tyrod a little more, but also Bowles knows Glenn very well. He was his secondary coach with the Jets in 2000. The two men are very, very close. They have the Parcells connection. But jumping to the defensive line, the Bucs lost a major piece, Kalijah Kancey last week. He's done for the year. First round player that I really like coming out a couple of years ago, the year we took Will McDonald. I guess that was 2023.
Yep.
And he added a lot. I mean, what he did. Now, so what do? They still got Villa Vea. They have our old friend, Hassan Reddick, who's been performing. And now they get to play their rookie, Elijah Roberts, who they drafted in the 5th round in April out of SMU. And let me tell you, Kalijah Kancey is a 1st-round pick. Elijah Roberts is a 5th-round pick. They drafted him for a reason. Okay, he's 6'4", 260 pounds. He came out of college being known as a massive run defender.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got to deal with that middle, So I don't know. It's not, it's not looking good. Do I think it's going to be like a 30-10 beatdown? No, I don't. But I think it'll be a little bit closer. But I also don't think the Bucs are going to score 30 points, which, given the Jets' defense the last couple of weeks, that's a bit of a relief. Maybe on the bright side. Go ahead.
Tanner Engstrand, I feel like, called a really good game for the limited amount of time that he had the offense on the field last week. You had guys running wide open, and Justin Fields just didn't see him, didn't throw the ball, was looking down at the line. The offensive line of the passing game got beat up, specifically on some plays where Tittman ends up in the soup and it just ends up with a free rusher, and that's clearly by design by the Bills, and you hope that gets corrected coming into this week. But the biggest matchup, I think, is going to be obviously Hassan Reddick against Membu. He's going to line up on his left, our right. He's
Right.
going to be going up against Armand Membu. At least Tyrod can see something coming. You would hope that Membu is able to play the way he did against J.J. Watt. He actually kept Bosa in check for most of the game. The times that Bosa got loose is when they decided to put Mason Taylor blocking him, which is just blows my mind. I don't think that's in any play design. I looked back at that specific sack, and you could see that Justin and Myers, the center, I think they shifted the protection the wrong way, which ended up putting Taylor on Bosa. Those things,
and you don't do that. You don't do that with a rookie tight end who's not known for his blocking. That's where maybe you bring in Ruckert in the H-back role. Where was Andrew Beck? Who we all talk about the preseason game against the Giants where he leveled Abdul Carter. Yeah, the personnel decisions, and I think you're right. I think the change of protections really cost them.
If this game comes down to a one possession game and the Buccaneers have the ball, I don't think there's any chance for winning the game because, like I said before, Baker Mayfield has, they call it Baker ball. If he's able to, he just finds a way to win games. And that's what you want out of your quarterback. That's why I felt like a few years ago they should have grabbed him, just get him somehow. If it comes down to a one possession game, I think clearly we'll be on the back foot. We're going to end up losing. I think it would probably be like a 2-score game, like a 27-17 type game. And, who do we got after that? Dallas? So
No, Miami, Monday Night Football.
Oh, it is Miami.
Yeah.
We're going to be 0-4.
So
it is what it is.
You're right.
Guys. This
and you have to
season
say
is not about winning. And when Aaron Glenn first got the job, it was, we're a win now team. Darren Muji, it's a win now team. And then a few days ago, he's at the podium talking about patience. I think he finally kind of realizes where this team's at. You always want to have that bravado, I think, when you first get in. So I'm not totally killing him on his comments in the beginning of the year. But you'd have to hope a coach like Aaron Glenn, who was drafted by the Jets, is going to do everything in his power to make the team better, no matter what it is. Doesn't matter who he's got to cut. Doesn't matter who he's got to bring in. He's going to do whatever he needs to do because he actually cares about the team.
Yes.
But going to the podium and having to basically backtrack his words, I think the exact question was, I forget the exact question. It was something about patience. And he answered, inside this building, we understand that. It's like, well, good. You understand it. So
he's also, he's got to be, it'll come with time. He's been a little short with the media a little bit, and it doesn't take much until you lose favor, right? And a couple of more of these games, which is likely to happen, right? Buccaneers Sunday, then Miami Monday Night Football, and then Dallas. I said it to, our group chat. We may be looking at 0-6 and bringing in Carolina, and they've been a surprise to me. Can you imagine not getting a win until week number 7? It's like
I can absolutely imagine it. I can absolutely imagine
it's like the COVID year when we went 2-14 with Gase, and the wins came at the tail end.
Which is going to happen again because the schedule does loosen up after the bye, so you can see this team grabbing getting a few wins and ending up with maybe possibly outside of a top 5 pick. You never know. The only remedy to everything that's going on, the only remedy to stop fans like us and to stop reporters second guessing everything Aaron Glenn says and Aaron Glenn does is winning. That's the only remedy. It's always going to be the remedy. And until this team stops being the butt of the joke for the entire NFL, for all of North American sports, it's going to be like that. Yeah. It's going to be like that. So let us know what you guys think in the comments. Let us know your score predictions. I not feeling great about down here. Where's my camera? Down there. Just I don't know. My prediction is so I did write down some possible predictions here. So I had Tyrod Taylor at around 200 yards, maybe a TD, passer rating of probably below 90. Baker Mayfield kind of replicating what he did last week, about 230 yards, 2 TDs, and a 106 rating. I could see Garrett Wilson kind of duplicating his effort, having about 50 receiving yards. I could see Bucky Irving having over 50 rushing yards. I think he had over 50 last week. Yeah, guys, I'm not too high on this game. Look, we went 0 for 11 on third downs last week.
Yeah.
0 for 11 on third downs. That doesn't get fixed in a week. That gets fixed throughout a season. That gets fixed maybe next season. I've never seen anything that bad in my life. Like I said in the beginning of the video, it didn't feel like the Jets played a football game last week.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we're looking at 27-18, and the individual statistics, I don't want to think about it maybe as we get closer, but anyway.
One last thing I wanted to bring up here. These jerseys.
The creamsicle.
Guys, the Buccaneers are going to, for their home opener, will be wearing white jerseys in 90-degree heat in Tampa, while we're going to be wearing our green. It's the exact same thing Miami does when they're home. Right?
Yep.
And Miami even has the benefit of the stadium being positioned in a way where the sun, as it peaks over the top of the stadium, the away bench is in blistering sun. And they do the same thing Dallas does. They wear whites at home. So you're stuck wearing, in the Jets case, green. So not saying it's a not factor, but it's certainly a factor with early games in September in Florida. I mean,
yeah, I live here. I know what it is.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Right, you live down there.
It'll be 98 degrees on the field. 98 degrees on the field, without a doubt.
Exactly.
Brutal.
And it's not much.
And not only that, people love the creamsicle uniforms. For the Bucs, it's going to be a loud stadium, and silent snap counts, and it's going to be rough.
It's going to be rough. So for anyone that doesn't follow us over on X, if you're on X, go over there, give us a follow. We do a halftime X space, and we do a post-game X space. And Steve, I was going to tell you this. I know you can't be on them this week, right?
I'll be on halftime. I will definitely be on halftime. I may be on the post game for a little bit. Things are in flux.
The usual co-host Ray is not going to be on any of them, and I am going to make an executive decision where if he cannot make them and we win, he's not allowed to be on any of them going forward for the rest of the season. But because clearly he's the problem. Clearly Ray is the problem.
Well, remember 2 years ago with the amazing win over the Eagles, where was he? Not on the show. Was he? That's right. He wasn't. It was you and I. Paul was at the game, and Ray was in a similar location to where he's going to be this weekend. So that may be the trick. Keep him out of the space.
Yep.
And
I remember Paul getting on the space. I guess he was walking out of the stadium just yelling, "That's the greatest game I've seen." And
yep.
Anyway. See, that's what we live for. We live for those tiny moments of happiness. It's almost like the amateur golfer that gets a good shot every now and then. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll stick around for the next 14 holes." That's what it's like being a Jet fan. You live for those tiny little moments of
the little
joy.
Wonders.
It's those little moments of joy that keep you going. I said this on X where, sorry, I'm ranting a little bit here, but I said this on X where I was like, the Jets have been so bad for the last 15 years that I'm now having trouble remembering players' names, certain situations, certain games. It's just, in my mind, it's turning into one giant blob of horrendous football that one day, Steve, the team will be good. Just the law of averages. The team will be good one day, one season.
One day.
And I'll be able to take all that memory, and I'll just be able to flush it down the toilet and just forget it ever occurred. It'll be like the movie, what's that Adam Sandler movie where he's got the remote and he can skip through moments in his life?
Oh,
is it called Click?
Yeah,
maybe
something like that. Yeah,
that's what I wish I had. Right. I wish I had something that I could just skip through the last 15, 16, 17 seasons, because that's what's going to be. It's going to be at least another 2, possibly 3
Well,
years for this team is competitive in any way, shape, or form. And the roster
even
is built in Darren Muji's and Aaron Glenn's image.
even the 2015 year, Bowles' first year as the head coach, when Gino gets his jaw broke.
Worse. That season's almost worse because you
I
had a
was
chance
gonna say,
and you laid an egg at the end.
right at the end. 2 Rex Ryan. 2
Mhm.
Rex Ryan. Of all the people you couldn't have. And that was it. But here we
You
go.
lose. That's the life of a Jet fan. You lose to Rex Ryan at the end of the season. Last week, you had Elijah Moore scoring touchdowns and doing backflips. This week, we're going to probably lose to Todd Bowles.
Maybe Todd Bowles will do backflips. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, Hassan Reddick. Can you imagine if he gets 4 or 5 sacks this week?
Watch them win with a strip sack from Hassan Reddick. Just watch. It's that because that's how. That's what we're conditioned as Jet fans. I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to be right.
So do I.
I hope I'm wrong. Okay. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Again, if you, I'm repeating this. If you follow us on X, go over there. We do a halftime and a post-game show. If you're watching us on Facebook, make sure you give us a follow. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a follow and a subscribe. It's the best way you can help out the channel. We will see you guys next week as we preview the Dolphins game. So talk to you soon.